Opponents say he's playing the word game with Americans on what's actually happening in Afghanistan.
I don't know why any American, to an extent, would want to stay in Afghanistan at this point for what's coming under Taliban rule. But I imagine there's a large amount of folks, in the countryside. Kabul is a city of 4 million people.
Biden has been working to reassure Americans with his communications that his administration is handling Afghanistan well.
Let's assume the Afghan National Force had continued to fight and they were surrounding Kabul. Be a very different story.
But his critics tell us he will not be able to explain it away to many Americans.
Well, I think one of the things is going to be what happens in the near and long term in Afghanistan. And so he's going to, he says the buck stops with him, but he's going to own what this withdrawal has done. And the shoddiness of it is going to lead likely to what's happening on the ground, is where we've seen not just the Taliban takeover, but you've got terrorist elements that are flooding back into Afghanistan.
Hospitality giant.
Where's the soonest? Hour by hour, it's getting more difficult. Even when the cars pass by, I feel like they're gonna stop by the door and they're the Taliban and they're gonna come in and kill us. I'm really scared. Please help me whenever it's the soonest. Hour by hour, it's getting more difficult. Even when the cars pass by, I feel like they're gonna stop.
How many American civilians will die in Afghanistan? I'm afraid it's already started.
To finish this by that August 31st deadline to get out of Afghanistan. That is 1 week from today, to get Americans out, to get all U.S. troops out. And it leads to questions tonight about all of the Afghans who helped the U.S. over the 20-year war. Will they get out too? Will that process continue after this deadline? The president saying he is concerned about the terror threat on the ground, with each day U.S. troops remain there. Concerned about ISIS in Afghanistan and about the Taliban, saying they're cooperating so far, but that's always a risk of it breaking down. Tonight, the evacuation's moving more quickly. The administration saying more than 33,000 people, now reporting that every American citizen in Afghanistan that registered with the embassy has now been contacted and has been given instructions to get to the airport. The administration says some 5,100 Americans have already been evacuated, but with thousands of Afghans still waiting to depart, the Taliban today telling Afghans not to go to the airport, that they should head back home, back to work, that there is no danger. But of course, the very real fears remain tonight. President Biden coming before the cameras late today, saying we will learn more about the number of Americans still there by tomorrow. Inside Afghanistan tonight, our team making their way to the airport overnight in a tense caravan, past heavily armed Taliban fighters, making it inside airport walls, where they will report for us tonight. Groups of Afghans also heading to the airport at night, boarding buses at a Taliban checkpoint, and then waiting, documents in hand, as the Taliban stand guard, determining who gets through and who doesn't. The president today had a virtual meeting with leaders of the G7.
Where's the soonest? Hour by hour, it's getting more difficult. Even when the cars pass by, I feel like they're gonna stop by the door and they're the Taliban and they're gonna come in and kill us. I'm really scared. Please help me whenever it's the soonest. Hour by hour, it's getting more difficult. Even when the cars pass by, I feel like they're gonna stop.
Who want to leave, all Afghans who risk their lives to help us in this mission will get out in the next 7 days.
And so what I can guarantee is we will get as many out as we possibly can with the time we have available.
Which implies some will be left behind.
I won't speculate on that. All I can say is we will get as many out as we possibly can.
Until let's bring in Ian Powell, reporting from the airport in Kabul for us again tonight. And Ian, I want to get back to what the president said just before we came on the air tonight. He said this August 31st deadline to withdraw all U.S. troops depends on the Taliban continuing to cooperate. The president also saying he's mindful of the increasing risks on the ground there, not only from ISIS, but from the Taliban itself, so far cooperating with the U.S., but the president said there's a serious risk of that breaking down at some point as well. Give us a sense here. You're at the airport. How do you get all of the Americans out, all of the Afghans who helped us out, and U.S. troops out by 1 week from today?
I mean, that is the key question, David, and I just don't see how that is possible. Perhaps you can get all American citizens out. We've seen a massive uptick in the number of airlifts, people going through this site here. The Marines are working around the clock to try and facilitate getting people onto the camp and out of the country. But this is a huge base. There are thousands of troops here, and it's going to take days just to get the troops out, to retrograde the base, and that means there's a very narrow window to get the people into the camp and out of the country. And it seems to me it's going to be almost impossible to guarantee that the Afghans who risk...
Where's the soonest? Hour by hour, it's getting more difficult. Even when the cars pass by, I feel like they're gonna stop by the door and they're the Taliban and they're gonna come and kill us. I'm really scared. Please help me whenever it's the soonest. Hour by hour, it's getting more difficult. Even when the cars pass by, I feel like they're gonna stop.
The president cited threats outside of the airport in Kabul, primarily from an ISIS affiliate in the country, as the main reason to stick with the end-of-the-month deadline. Some critics, however, argue the president's decision creates more future security risks.
All of those terrorist organizations which want to attack the United States now have an entire country as a sanctuary, thanks to this withdrawal that we've seen President Biden order.
Several Democrats pushed back on the president's exit date, too, saying the Taliban shouldn't dictate U.S. withdrawal. The Taliban have warned against extending the deadline past August 31st.
I don't think that our presence beyond August 31st should be contingent on agreement with the Taliban.
Despite the criticism, the White House says the president has asked the Pentagon and the State Department for contingency plans to adjust the timeline if needed.
The focus of the commander-in-chief is always going to be on the safety and security of the men and women who are serving our country in the military.
While the Pentagon says the U.S. has not begun withdrawing troops from Afghanistan, it confirms hundreds of troops have already left the country, including maintenance and headquarters staff whose mission at the airport in Kabul was complete. In Washington, Malda Rivera, Fox 5 News Edge at 11.
Still ahead tonight at 11, an incredible scene in California.
Where's the soonest? Hour by hour, it's getting more difficult. Even when the cars pass by, I feel like they're gonna stop by the door and they're the Taliban and they're gonna come and kill us. I'm really scared. Please help me whenever it's the soonest. Hour by hour, it's getting more difficult. Even when the cars pass by, I feel like they're gonna stop.
Tomorrow, they're also expected to discuss the pandemic and continued hostilities on the Gaza Strip. Later today, Bennett is scheduled to meet with Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. March's COVID-19
West Highlands happened here. She started with neighborhood leaders and put together the roadmap. These homes went up and crime dropped. At the heart of it, Sharon was fighting inequity. She demanded affordable places for people to live and real neighborhood investment. She took on one of the root causes of crime, and it worked. Sharon helped turn things around here, and she'll do the same for the rest of Atlanta.
Sharon Gay for mayor.
You would be a target for the Taliban. I spoke with her today, and she told me about her harrowing escape with her fiancé.
I was feeling that I'm going to die here, literally.
actually able to capture footage of your escape. If you could just walk me through.
If there's anyone that believes that Joe Biden has done the proper thing when it comes to Afghanistan, they need to have their head examined. And they obviously don't have any family members that are in Afghanistan that are being attacked, having their passport taken away and destroyed. People cannot get to the airport. And this is your Joe Biden at work, who is a total friggin' moron.